You are listening to It's Later Than You Think. Oh, hey. Hope you are all doing swell. Have you given any more thought to taking a step back from your smartphone addiction and doing something without it? Feel free to check out the previous episode, Put the Phone Down, if you have not done so already. Once again, it is time for a podcast guest. What I really enjoy about having guests such as Tyler on the podcast is that they may live across the country. I may have never met them in person. We may not be the same age, yet we can find commonalities and begin a friendship through mutual interests and respect. With that said, here's my chat with Tyler. All right, my guest today is Tyler Keogh from Philly. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, what's up? Thank you for having me, Patrick. I appreciate it.
It's good to finally chat with you live versus instead of just on Instagram messaging.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know we did talk before, but it's really nice to get to chat for a little bit longer this time. It's instead of just online all the time. So it's cool.
Exactly. We're Instagram buddies. Wanted to get you on here because I know we've talked in the past, and you've got some really interesting kind of experiences and things that you've gone through over the last couple of years. And one of them I wanted to ask you about your overall outlook on life. How would you describe that overall?
Well, as you said, I've definitely gotten to experience a couple things over the last few years that have allowed me to grow up a little bit. And throughout that, I think my outlook on life has changed in that I've started to adopt the idea that everything kind of happens for a reason. I feel that there's a lot of things in my life that'll happen that might not necessarily seem like the best thing to happen at the time, but over time I'll realize that, it was supposed to happen, whether that be through me not getting, a position or not getting, a role that I wanted to get. And then I find that something better comes along the way, or if one of my projects doesn't do well, I end up putting my time and effort into something else that actually ends up growing a lot bigger. And those are just small examples of the reason I feel that way. I see a lot happen in the world that isn't great, especially right now. There's a lot of rough stuff going on, but I do find that in the end, generally, things seem to work out on an individual level, although these things are happening. At the end of the day, for me, this is just a personal experience too. I understand everybody's experience is different, but at the end of the day, I have somewhere to live. I have a good support network. I'm able to get to the gym. I'm able to eat well. I'm able to do all this. Even when things seem tough, in the darkest times, everything is a lot brighter on the other side, at least in my experience. So that's been my personal experience. I did have somebody come up to me the other day that I was talking to and say, well, I can't relate to that idea that everything happens for a reason, because very, very bad things happen to people, to very, very good people. I understand that. And that was the first time anybody said something like that to me. So it actually resonated a lot with me that, I have to make sure that I note that this is my personal experience, and that's why I feel that way. That's definitely the biggest things that's driven me, is that, especially in times where, there could be a week where everything's going wrong. Nothing's working on my computer. My phone is acting up. I don't have time to do anything for myself. The laundry's not getting done. I have to do this. My car breaks. Everything seems to happen at once. But at the end of the day, I noticed that when things are really, really going bad, it's just life preparing me for the good to happen. So that's been something that I've really been keeping in mind over the last few years.
Yeah, I like your outlook. I mean, I think it sounds like you're able to put things in perspective. It says, as you gave a few examples though, when it rains, it pours, and that I completely believe that. I think for me, like bad things happen in threes. It's just, there's just like a line. You're just, sometimes there's a couple bad things happen. You're like waiting for that next one. Just get it out of the way, get it over with. To your point though, and interesting that someone approached you on this, your point of, things happen for a reason. I have somewhat agreed with that. The way I always give myself an out, or at least my viewpoint is, I think that things happen for a reason or another. Really awful and difficult things that happen. And you might ask whoever, this higher power is, or powers, or whatever you believe in, universe, all that. Why would this happen to me? Or why would this happen to someone close to me? And so for that, I always say it's or another. There's just some other reason that I don't even know, that I'm not going to be able to explain. I wouldn't, say that to someone if I knew that they had some really difficult times. But I completely also understand where you and other people believe that, like, yeah, it's happening. We just maybe don't know why.
Right, right. A small kind of point to what that person was saying, where, well, bad things, really, really bad things happen to people. There's a parable. It's the Chinese farmer parable. And it's one day there's a Chinese farmer and he has a horse and it runs away. And the people in the town come and say, oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. And he says, well, yes, well, maybe. The next day the horse comes back and everyone's like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. And he says, yes, well, maybe. The horse ends up breaking his son's leg and everyone in the town's like, oh no, that's horrible. And he says, oh, well, yes, maybe. And the next day, the soldiers come and they're rounding up people for the war and they don't take his son because he has a broken leg. And everyone's like, that's fantastic. And he says, well, yes, maybe. So it's like, you kind of never know, even when the worst things that happen are actually happening for a reason. And again, as we said, it's not to discredit other people's,
right.
Bad things happen and it never gets better. But it's like, at least for me, I find that as long as I continue to have like a positive outlook and think that everything's going to get better, it usually does. So that's just one thing that I've, subscribed myself to really try to believe.
So when you do have either setbacks or challenges, how do you approach those? I know you've kind of alluded to that, hey, it's something that happens, I'll get through it, but is there anything specific that you found works for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I can give an example. Like right now, I'm doing a lot. Like I'm 25, I'm beginning my career, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. And so when I'm outside of work, I'm working on myself 24/7. And I mean, even at work, I'm working on myself. But in general, I'm working on myself in every aspect of my life. I'm making sure to go to the gym. I'm making sure that I'm keeping up with my hobbies. I'm making sure that I'm, building business on the side. I make sure that I'm helping out the community where I can. Just doing everything. And sometimes I do feel like it gets overwhelming. In that scenario, I've at this point trained myself that I need to make sure to take a week break. I usually give myself a week. I say I'm not going to do anything for a week, other than the stuff that I have to do, like for my, activities. It's like I still, get to the gym and I'll still do my nonprofit, but like stuff, all my other side stuff, I just take a week break. And because I know that if I don't take a break, don't give my body a break, my body will take the break. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather be in control of that break and reset than have my body control that. And back to the other point, whenever I'm experiencing like real big setbacks, I just like know that things are gonna get exponentially better soon. Because it always kind of goes. It's waves. It can go from the waves of like everything, every technical thing in my life going wrong, and price of eggs goes up again, and like everything goes up, and then for some reason, like I'll have a day where I'll have a day off of work where I'm able to fix everything, every technical problem that's going on, and then I'll also get a refund check in the mail of something, or from like for some reason twice I've gotten like a a refund from Giant from a lawsuit that somebody filed against them while I was working there. Okay. And like, so I'll get that. So it's like random things will just like happen, kind of turn everything around, flip everything around. Since I was younger, that just the right things happen at the right time. while I feel that I'm being challenged, I try to stay vigilant for opportunities and just like keep that positive outlook that everything will get better and I'll have days that are like amazing. And I'll try not to take that for granted. On the days that are bad, I think to myself, everything will get better. But the days that are very good, I try not to take for granted because I know that there will be a day that everything will be bad again. So does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. That's a really good outlook to have. I think keeping that positive attitude that goes a long way, especially when things get tough. It's trying to, find the silver lining. Something I try to do a lot too. Like, this is bad, but it could be a lot worse. Going back to your point earlier, how things that you have in your life, shelter and food and a career, like, you can be very fortunate that those things are going well.
Yeah, and it's also like it's real easy to say that things go well when you're also like in a position where you're comfortable. And
Yeah.
I do recognize that other people like if this isn't the normal for other people. There are other people that just life is just not good to them, and I try to recognize that.
That's good.
What about you? What is your like?
I'd say, mine, something I've kind of adapted over the last few years is I've really gotten into like stoicism. The gist with that is the main point is that I really just try to control what I can and to live not necessarily a completely calm life, but it's not getting completely overexcited, also not getting completely down when things happen as well. And again, there's going to have that ebbs and flows of life. I always think back to when it's something that I perceive as negative happens. I think, okay, is that outside of my control, or is that, how can I go about continuing to deal with this? Maybe I need to do some meditation. Maybe I need to journal. Maybe I need to text or call a friend and talk it out. In the past, it was therapy. I don't let those, it's like I don't sweat the small stuff either. There's just times where it's like, okay, putting things in perspective. Does this really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, stoicism, as you mentioned, that's something that I've been finding a lot, like on Instagram, like stoic accounts, and like reading some of that stuff is like some of these people are putting out some crazy stuff, but like a lot of it is really interesting, like introspective, like if you think like it's a new way to think of things. I really like some of those accounts and just then reading about that stuff online. So it's
Yeah.
something I've kind of.
I mean,
If
I
you have
really
any
like,
recommendations?
well, I follow Ryan Holiday. He's definitely
Okay.
he's one of the most well-known authors on Stoicism. He lives in Bastrop, Texas, or near Bastrop. That's where his bookstore is, down in Austin, near Austin, Texas. And he's written, gosh, on Stoicism, I think he's written 7 or 8 books at least. And
Okay, I'm gonna look him up.
yeah, Ryan Holiday, he's really interesting. And he, because this stuff, the idea of this is actually super old. I mean, there's like, goes back, these Stoics go back thousands of years, but the principles still hold true in today's society. Whether
Yeah, it's
it's,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, whether you're talking about, the day-to-day things, about, your outlook on life. I find it really fascinating.
Yeah,
Whether
no,
it's,
me too. Honestly, and I feel like what a lot of people don't realize is which if nobody knows, the reason that Patrick and I are kind of connected here is because we both do not drink alcohol anymore. So that's kind of how we got connected. And I find that because I don't drink anymore, I'm able to put a lot more energy into focusing on myself and getting better. It allows me to, regulate my mood a lot more than I was able to before. And just waking up like fresh and clear every single day allows me to hit the day like with at least 80% if I'm like sick or whatever. Like 80 to 100% like every single day, which allows me to like focus on myself, work on myself, and end the day better than I was when I started the day. Which is really like an underrated way of living life. You know what I mean? Like the idea of like even if somebody were to drink heavily one day a week, you're still missing like all of Saturday. So yeah, you're operating like 6 out of 7, but what if you could operate 7 out of 7? That's one I really like owe a lot of where I'm at today from that decision.
Yeah. Well, and really, you said, I mean, you think about, oh, 6 out of 7, oh, it's not terrible. Well, that's 85%. There's 15% of your week that you're
Yeah,
not living up to your potential. So I
exactly.
completely agree. And I was one of those people where it was the weekend binges. So either my Saturday or Sunday was pretty much just toast, and that affects you a lot. And especially, I think the overall mood and anxiety is just no thanks.
Yeah, no, and it's like it's all about moderation at the end of the day. I'm a true believer now in that like there really is no advantages other than like maybe socially, but like you kind of learn to live with that, right? Like you kind of learn how to deal socially. You kind of get over that the need for something to take away your inhibition. Like you socially adapt yourself to the situation. There really is no upside to to drinking at this point. That's kind of what I believe.
Well, and I went out and I share this type of story many times, but even last week I went out with two really good friends of mine. I've known these guys since high school or even before. And we met up for a happy hour, still call it happy hour, even though I'm not drinking. We met up for about 2 hours, and one of the guys had a beer or two, and the other one had maybe two or three, and I had a couple NA beers, and we talked for 2 hours straight. We laughed for 2 hours straight, and then I went home, and it was great. you know?
Exactly.
So,
Life doesn't need to end. There's things that you can do that to improve your outlook on life, in my opinion. There's steps you can take to make your days a little better. You don't need crutches. Yeah, you need a support system for when things go bad. You need hobbies. You need things that make you happy,
yeah,
and that's it. But you also need like structure. So I owe a lot of my current positivity to the changes that I've made to improve myself.
that's great. With that transition there into kind of talking about sobriety, let's actually talk how we first kind of got connected, and that's through the sober Instagram community.
Yes.
And your account, NA Brewski.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit how that kind of came to be?
Yeah. When I was in college, which was only a few years ago, I wasn't really much of a drinker to begin with until I kind of got into my fraternity. And so when I joined my fraternity, we, obviously we're throwing parties, we were having a lot of different macro beers and stuff, but I started to get really into craft beer. And at the same time as drinking craft beer, I was drinking a lot of macro. So I was kind of drinking socially and by myself. And when I drank enough craft beer, I started to be like, I kind of want to like document it. So I started putting stuff on Instagram, different craft beers and stuff, connecting with like a little community. And then when I made the decision to stop drinking, I like, oh, what do I do? Like I was in this, what am I supposed to do with my account? I discovered non-alcoholic beer. I was at Monk's Cafe in Philly, and I saw that they had non-alcoholic beer on the menu. And I was like, what is this? And I had one, and it was like the Athletic All Out Stout. I'd heard of non-alcoholic beer before. I actually, in my frat, my little, one of my two littles, he was Muslim, so he couldn't have alcohol. And so I bought him, we went up to New York, and on the way, like I bought me and my buddy some beers, and I bought him some non-alcoholic Budweiser. Turns out that, non-alcoholic beer does have under 0.5% alcohol, so it still does have a little bit of alcohol. So he couldn't end up drinking it. So me and my buddy drank it on the steps in New York, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty decent. So then when I had it, I was like, wow, there's good craft stuff. So I started to put a couple craft things on my account, and I was like, okay, I'll still, because I was originally just brewski. I didn't know if I wanted to go back to drinking at all, and then I made the decision around my birthday that I was just gonna completely take it out because I didn't really feel the need for alcohol anymore. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to keep with the non-alcoholic stuff. And I remember telling my girlfriend, like, I'm really worried because I don't think I'm gonna have enough content. And boy, was I wrong. and and it's seriously like, so that's how. And then I changed it to NA Brewski. I remember that day that I made the decision to go to NA Brewski. I didn't know it was kind of like an SEO keyword thing. I was like, well, I kind of want NA in front of it because I want people to look up non-al because a lot of other people in the community have NA.
Yeah.
So NA Brewski came about, and I never looked back. And I reached a point a long time ago where I have too much content. So yeah, so that's kind of how it came about.
I did like your April Fools a couple years ago where you were going to go to NA Wine Ski or something.
Yeah, yeah, anyway, ski. Yeah, that was cool.
And you like you never said anything about it, so like it was funny because you just like left it up for like, oh, like
yeah,
oh my god, I think he's serious.
yeah, yeah. No, I because I posted the day before and I wanted it to be like real, and that actually did so well. So I actually got for that one. I actually got approached by Bravas because I was working pretty heavily as an affiliate for them. They make non-alcoholic beers, and they were like, "Hey, we're releasing a new wine. We want you to promote it." I was like, "Well, I don't really do wine." And they were like, "Well, April Fool's is coming up. Why don't you like pretend like you're a wine guy?" And I was like, "You know what? Well." They made the joke that I should do that, and they weren't actually serious. And I was like, "You know what? I'm actually going to do that." So it was like a little camp. It was sort of a little campaign for their wine. And then at the same time, I won a giveaway through Sticker Shuttle, and I got 100 free stickers. So I used that to make the wine any wines because I made a new logo and I made the stickers to even sell it even more. That I was switching stickers, I was switching logos. You know what I mean? So it was like it was like a great little campaign. It was a lot of fun.
That is so funny. Yeah, I know. I just like think back to some of our conversations when I first was kind of going through this, like, I got to give it up. It's time. And I just wasn't quite there. But I remember I decided I was, but I really, really wasn't. And we would kind of message back and forth here and there. And then I'd post stuff. And then at one point I just kind of dropped off. Like, I'm just not ready but I don't want to go face the music of the Instagram community. So I'm just not going to post, or I'm going to hide my account for a while, whatever. And then I remember, I think it was a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, but I like came back, looked up your account with all my other people that I followed and chatted or whatever. And I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm doing it again. And again, this wasn't even my final time. I'm going to take a year off.
Right.
And I remember you said something, I don't remember verbatim. Dude, next time, if you think you're going to drink, just reach out, man. I will help you. And I was like, that's awesome. I don't even know this guy. And then I got to 3 months, and about a year ago, I need one more time. I'm gonna figure this out. And as I tell people, they're like, oh, well, how long that lasts? 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then that was the day, Mother's Day weekend. Okay, that's enough. That is absolutely enough. No more. I'm going to do it not do it for a year, not do it for this. I just don't do it anymore. And I haven't honestly really missed it. You talked about the social stuff sometimes.
No, I think that's one thing that people don't really understand. And it's something that it's kind of crazy to me is that like when your account went dark, it like broke me a little bit. Like,
I get sorry.
No. Like I was like, because there are a couple people. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know in the industry that are like, I know people that are in the early stages of sobriety, and later stages, but like especially like the people there's a handful of people that I kind of went through it in the beginning with, and they were like my network. And then I always like once in a while I see an account drop off and not come back, and it's just like it hits me in the gut like hard. And I literally was like talking to my girlfriend like, I can't, like, I hope he's good. I hope I talk to him again one day. And if I don't, I just hope he's okay somewhere. Like that's how I was really feeling. So like, I remember specifically when you popped up back on my feed when I was walking back to work from our local corner store, and I like stopped almost in the middle of the intersection. I was like, dude, he's back. Holy crap. So like, I know it's very, very strange. To have somebody on the internet that like, you don't even know, you've never really talked to. We hadn't even know what each other, I don't even know if we knew what each other looked like at that point.
No, I don't think so.
But like, seriously, like that was like it felt like a win for me when you came back, sort
Yeah.
of. And that, and it, to be honest, you're the only one that has like left that actually came back.
Really? Okay.
Everyone else has, it's a couple people have dropped off and I never heard from them again. It's just like, it's one of those things that's like, I don't know how to describe it, but no, seriously, the fact that you're here and you're doing what you're doing and you're, focused on it. It's just, I mean, it's inspiring. It really is. So,
Yeah. Appreciate
like,
that.
yeah, no, dude, like, keep doing what you're doing. And as I said, like, you could just reach out. Like, I believe that anybody, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't struggled. Like, it's
Oh,
not
for
like
sure.
once you
Right.
quit, it's over. Like, it's not like temptations go away. It's not like frustration for the way that society shoves it down your neck. There's a lot to it. Every day is, that's why they say one day at a time, right? Because it just feels so easy. It feels like you're missing something sometimes.
Mhm.
But you're really, it's just one of those things you have to take one day at a time. So, there are people that have been there for me when, it's a bad time.
Yep.
And I just want to be there, anybody, really anybody that is struggling with anything, like, can always feel free to reach out to me. Like, I'm just there to help. And that's kind of where non-alcoholic beer comes in. That's kind of part of what any brewski is about, is that it is here to, I really am building a way for brands to reach consumers, like a pseudo marketing platform. But at the end of the day, the reason for that, the overall reason, is to fully help people make healthier choices by making this stuff more accessible and maybe save somebody's life. That's because, like, I know what it did for me, and I just like want it to be as accessible as possible for people to have an option. So that I'm trying to do my part little by little to make sure that there's hope for people.
I think people would be surprised too if they go to your account to see how much of a variety there are. I mean, you're just talking about NA beer, right? I mean, you've got all the other
Yeah.
the elixirs and liquors and wine and all that, but just thinking as far as the NA beer scene and the craft beer scene, I mean, you have promoted so much on there, and it's not just going to the store and either doing the NA Bud or the O'Doul's or Klausthaler. There's just so much quality NA beer out there.
No, there is, and people at the events that I do at like big beer festivals. Last year, I got Go Brewing to the biggest Philadelphia beer festival of the year. It's the first time anybody had ever heard of a non-alcoholic beer being at a festival this big. And I'm not sure if anywhere. I haven't. Everyone was very surprised to hear something like this, and a lot of the people that would come up to me were shocked to hear that it was a non-alcoholic beer. And also, like, other types of people were like, well, I've had non-alcoholic beer before. It's not good. There are so many good options out there. It's not, most of the options aren't going to people need to understand that it's not going to completely replicate. I mean, there's options that do, like Guinness Zero and like
Oh my
Heineken
god,
and like Stella, like
yeah.
they're 1-to-1 matches and it's
Guinness is
insane.
awesome. Yeah,
But there's a lot of this stuff that, like, it's not supposed to taste like alcohol because alcohol isn't good. It's not a good flavor. Like
yeah.
when you add more alcohol to like a beer and you make something 20%, it doesn't taste good. Like, you have to, unless you drink it every day all the time and then you develop a taste and then you can kind of get the notes. There's so much more flavor that's focused on in non-alcoholic beer because that's all you got. It's a drink to drink for the flavor now.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not trying to get you messed up. It's not trying to do this or that. It's about the flavor. So when it comes to brewing a non-alcoholic beer, there's just so much more. And I don't want to say there's so much more passion behind it because I know for a fact that there's a lot of craft brewers are very passionate about their craft. But in terms of like flavor, that's what they focus on the most. And that's what's always excited me about craft beer. The idea of mixing, hops and the barleys and the water and the yeast and everything in a certain way to create this delicious carbonated bread water. And I love it. I think that, like, it's, a lot of people are like, well, what's the point? It's like, well, I like beer. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like that's, and there should be no follow up questions to that. There can be, but it's like there's nothing else you could possibly ask there. I like the flavor of something, and I don't like one of the things in it. Like, just remove that thing, and you have a perfect product, in my opinion. That's it.
I mean, if you were to flip that around on them, and if they don't say anything other than "I like to get drunk," it's like, what else are you like? Why do you like it? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that was probably my answer for many years. Was, oh, I like the buzz, I like to get drunk, and stupid decisions probably after this. But hey, if I could be someone that has one or two and then just calls it a day, great. But that's not me.
No, and it's like, it's fine. Like, that's the way I was too. It's fine. I mean, I wasn't a frat. Like, I'll be the first to admit it, that I was one of those people that would have laughed non-alcoholic beer off the face of the planet. I'm like, well,
oh yeah,
no way. I'm not gonna drink that. Like, what's the point? But I mean, it just is what it is. So
yeah,
I'm not gonna try to necessarily, like, if somebody's opinion doesn't want to be, they don't want to change their mind, I'm not gonna sit there and argue with
right.
them about it. I'm just going to provide the facts and say, well, this is here for people that are interested in it. So if you're not interested in it at all, I don't really care.
Right.
In the nicest way possible. You know what I mean? I'm here. When you in this beer festival, when you're done your 10 barrel aged bourbon stouts and you're stumbling all over and you still want to drink a beer, I'm here. You know what I mean? You still want another beer, but you can't drink another beer, I'm here.
Yep. And when you are the next day, when you're laying in bed or laying on the couch and you open up your Instagram, come find me. You don't have to, you can just creep a little bit. You don't have to say anything, but start following those NA accounts and eventually that's how it is for everybody. I mean, I followed so many people, didn't say anything. And then at some point you start chipping in a little bit and then just that momentum.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in passion really being something that's extremely selling. I'm not like a salesman or anything. When people come up, it's one thing to hire a marketing agency to run your table at like an event and just have them have the product there. Like, that's great. That's good for the industry. That's good for awareness. But then you have somebody like, that's why I love doing events, because like you come up to somebody who's like passionate about it and knows it and spends their time studying and spends their time talking to people and spends their time marketing it and learning all the intricacies of each brand and the beer and the stories. How can you not like fall in love with it if you have any interest and somebody else is just passionately pitching it to you? And I also feel like I'm also a believer that like it's part of the craft beer industry. So like I loved, one thing I was going to miss was the community part of the craft beer industry. Talking about the different hops, talking about the different styles and different glassware and all this stuff. Like it's one to one. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So you still get to appreciate all of that about it and communicate and talk to. I can talk to any craft beer enthusiast across the internet about it. I just happen to be in the non-alcoholic space.
Yeah.
So it's like a twofold thing. Like, I'm very passionate about the non-alcoholic side, but I'm also extremely passionate about the craft side. I think as people start to recognize that it's a valid industry, it'll just become a lot more. It's the same thing. It's quite literally the same thing.
Yeah, and I think we've seen the numbers as far as just people drinking less, whether it's the Gen Z or even millennials starting to cut back. We're going to see more and more of that across the board, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, totally. I work with NA Beer Club, and I just did an article for them on the economic impact of Dry January, and we're at a stage where Dry January in itself it's not a trend anymore. It was a trend for, I would say, a couple years, but like this year alone, and it's seriously like the economic impact is huge. So it's an adapt or die kind of situation. And it is unfortunate, as with any business in any time period in any industry, you have to learn to adapt to your market. And this just happens to be one of the things you need to adapt to. You need to start investing in non-alcoholic technology. You need to start investing in a contract brewer, because most non-alcoholic beers in the country are contract brewed. Not a lot of people know that. There's very, very few non-alcoholic breweries that brew their own non-alcoholic beer, and even less breweries that brew non-alcoholic beer that are brewing their own. You adapt. People have been doing it for centuries. Adapt. Like it's just one like you're not actually even going outside of your niche. You're just taking something out, which admittedly is more
Good point.
expensive.
Yeah.
Which admittedly, yes, there's more capital involved most of the time. So I understand that resistance to shelling out for something that you don't even know if your market really wants, but just do market research.
Let's switch to some more random questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, first one here. If you had the chance to explore the ocean or space, which would you choose?
No, that's easy. Space all the way. I do not do the ocean. I do not like going in the ocean. I do not
Okay.
like thinking about the ocean. I do not like watching movies about the ocean. I do not like the ocean. We do not belong there.
How many times have you been to the ocean?
I
Just
mean,
curious.
I've been to like the shore
Okay.
and like I've gone in the ocean, but like I get out as soon as I possibly can because like I understand it's like one of those things that's just like I know that I'm probably fine, but I'm not really. I want to keep myself on land. I want to keep
Sure.
land underneath my legs, and that's it. I can control that. So,
You could get stuck in space though.
dude, at that point, I believe that if you're going to space, you kind of like have to have the mentality that you might sort of. And space is so cool, man. It's like the idea of the expansiveness of space and like the how little we understand about it. Even like doing a space like anything that they do in space is studying something, is learning something. Which you can argue that about the ocean too, but like when I'm at the beach going in the ocean, I'm not learning anything other than how to spot sharks quicker and crabs quicker.
Yeah.
Space, 100%.
Okay.
How about you?
I think the ocean. I don't know. I just it's I don't know if I need to go super deep where it's completely pitch black because there are some gnarly looking fish down there and other sea creatures that I don't want to know about, but like scuba diving sounds awesome. I've done snorkeling before, but and when the coral reefs were actually fun to look at, and I know majority of them are not doing well from the random documentaries I've watched. I don't love the idea of the sharks either, but check out some dolphins, some whales, whatnot. So I'll go ocean.
That's fair.
Next question. What mystery or phenomenon would you love to solve or understand?
That's a good one.
A little deep.
Yeah. Honestly, black holes intrigue me a lot. The idea of how they like bend time. There's theories that like you don't actually die. There's theories that like the spaghettification, like
Sure.
from the outside, like it just then gets like slower for the observer. And like honestly, just the idea of like time and like relativity. Relativity when I was in school like always interested me. The idea like that a moving clock is slower to an observer. Like the
Mm-hmm.
idea like so like probably black holes. That might be I would love to solve it. I don't know if that would be like the number one thing, but that would be definitely something that I would love to learn more about.
Nice. I'd like to learn more, I think, about deja vu. Because
Ah, yeah.
when it happens, it's something that just passes by me very quickly. But those random times where I'm like, I've been in this situation before, or like, I already have said this. Why did that just happen? Why do I have this feeling that this has already played out in my life? And then I like think to like, something where like the Truman Show movie, and just that type of stuff where like Big Brother or something they're watching or whatever it is. And I've already done this before. And that's always something I think back on occasionally, but it's always fleeting. It's so fast. Like, and then I don't think about it anymore.
Well, that's interesting. Honestly, another thing, I'm going to add a second one here, which is kind of similar. Dreaming. I would love to know how dreaming, like, I know that it basically is like that it's our dreaming is basically just like our subconscious figuring out the day and categorizing
Yeah.
ideas and concepts and stuff. But like, we still don't really know a lot about that. Just like deja vu, like there's a theory that it's kind of just your brain putting together like patterns in your current scenario because you've either been in that situation when this feeling came on or this person was talking and your
Yeah.
brain just like thinks you did it before. But like I like to believe that there's more to it. And like just like with dreaming, that like there's more to it, whether it's I don't know what. But some of the stuff you dream about, it's almost like some of the stuff is so real that it's like you're living another life sometimes. Like you're getting to experience things that you don't actually get
Yeah.
to experience.
Well, and I thought I read once too, and again, there may not be any actual truth or science behind this, but the random people that you see in your dreams that maybe aren't part of that storyline, they're people that you've actually walked past in on the
Yeah.
street. You might have seen them that day, and you never would think about them ever again. But they end up happening in your dream, and you don't maybe recognize them there, but they were part of your life at some point.
Yeah, that is crazy. I did hear that you can't make up a face. Your brain can't make up a face. Like any face
Yeah,
that really calls into question like how much does our brain actually take in? We only remember a very small portion of
yes.
like what like that's why I can't even recall lunch today. You know what I mean? Like I can't recall every detail of lunch today. That was only a couple hours ago. No, it's just the human brain. Like my girlfriend's a psychologist, so well,
Okay.
she's studying to be a psychologist.
Sure.
So, but she's all about the brain. She's always telling me new things about the brain, and the brain itself is just a crazy thing to think about. And the idea that I'm thinking with my brain, I'm a brain thinking about itself right now is like
Yeah.
meta, extremely meta.
Back to a quick NA question for you. And this might not be
Sure.
fair because you are NA Brewski and you love craft beer, but what is your go-to NA beer? Is it impossible to pick just one?
My go-to, this is going to be controversial, but NA Blue Moon,
Ooh, good one.
because, and there's specific reasons for that. It is the one beer that I will always make sure I have in stock. Like I'll buy
Okay.
it, like, and make sure that I have a 6 pack or a 12 pack at all times just to have on. My buddies and I used to do like movie nights and stuff, or just like hangouts. But we would just get a bunch of Blue Moon and we just drink that all night, and it was just like some really good memories. And when they came out with the non-alcoholic version, it was just like this is the greatest thing ever, and I really like it. I actually like it more than I liked the alcoholic Blue Moon.
That's funny. I think we messaged about this summer because I finally had one at Milwaukee's Summerfest, the big music festival.
Right? Yeah.
And the day I went, it was super hot, and I think I had started with an iced coffee, and then I was looking around. They had some NA options, but they weren't great. And then I stumbled across one of the bars, and they had Blue Moon, and I hadn't had a regular Blue Moon in years. I think I had stopped drinking it because after a while I just didn't love the taste. I don't know why. Maybe because I liked it better out of the tap versus the bottle. Who knows? But I hadn't had one in so long, and that NA Blue Moon was so good. I mean, and not only it just quenched my thirst because I was very thirsty, but I was really surprised that I liked it that much. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah, no, I think that the Blue Moon, I've always really been fascinated by Blue Moon, about how it was like it was able to maintain its craft status even though it's like one of the biggest. It's a macro beer. Let's all be real here. It's a macro beer, but it just tastes very craft. And then just the also like Keith Phillips' story, like Keith Phillips, the brewmaster behind Blue Moon, he ended up creating his own non-alcoholic beer company called Syria. So he actually moved on to non-alc beer, but still like brought his knowledge there. So like the lore, I really like the lore behind Blue Moon just as
Yeah.
much as I enjoy the beer.
Well, it's interesting how one of your favorite alcoholic beers became one of your favorite non-alcoholic beers. That's similar to mine, which is we mentioned this earlier, was Guinness.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the end of my drinking days, Guinness was my favorite beer. And now switching over to the NA side, I love NA Guinness, and they did a hell of a good job with the replication on that. I don't know how, but and
They
again,
really did.
I never was an aficionado. So like, I'm sure if I did a side by side, I could taste the difference, which I never allowed myself to because I was either drinking or I wasn't. From people that know beer, they've said like, yeah, you can tell the difference, but they said the NA is very good. So
Yeah. No,
that's not
the
just
NA
me.
is it's quite simply, yeah, like of course it tastes different. The NA just tastes like Guinness without the alcohol.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly what it's supposed to. Like, sure, you can add like bitters or whatever to replicate the alcohol taste, but like we're not like at least for me, like I'm not looking for the alcohol taste. Some people are, I get that. But like people don't really understand that like it's not it we don't want the alcohol. That's the whole point is we don't want the
yeah.
alcohol taste.
Right. Got one more question for you. You've been to the what is that out in Washington D.C. The NA Dry
Mindful Drinking
January
Fest.
Mindful Drinking Fest? Yeah. How it was
Yeah.
that pretty cool?
Yeah, that's awesome. Last year I wasn't I'm really glad I went last year. I wasn't gonna go, and then the week of, like one of my buddies in the industry said I have a free ticket, you should just go. So I just went. I bought like a hotel and train tickets for me and my girlfriend to go down. And we went. It's like a 3 day event, so like just based around like non-alcoholic drinks, wellness events, industry talks, seminars, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I went and it was like I was still new to like the NA beer. Like I'd only been kind of promoting stuff on my page for like 9 months or so, like 6 to 9 months. And I started to like meet a bunch of people who were like
Mhm.
owners and CEOs and people who were kind of doing what I was doing. And then this year I went again, but as a vendor for Go Brewing. So that was like a
Got it.
huge, like, it was like a huge step up for me, like just to kind of gauge how far I've come. So
Oh,
it
that's
was like
awesome.
this cool, and it's like, it's an open event for everyone. Like you have to buy a ticket or whatever, but it feels like while it is there for people to like discover new drinks, it feels almost like an industry like meetup. Like everybody that I've talked to across like the internet was like there. And it was just
Yeah.
to see everyone and talk to everyone and discuss like future business and discuss this and that and make connections. It was just like it's like an incredible it was just an incredible experience for somebody like in the industry.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've hoping to get there someday. Milwaukee does their own, but it's a 1 day from like 12, 4 hours in the afternoon. They just call it NA Fest or something like that. So,
Um,
but it's like, they had, I don't know how many different vendors, like 30 or 40 or so. I didn't, yeah, I went the last couple times, but it's been good. I
that's
think
pretty cool.
the 3 days sounds pretty exciting too.
Yeah, no, it's cool because you do everything from like on Friday night. There's like karaoke, a couple other like little events, and then there's like 2 days full of like tastings, and they
Cool.
also have like as I said like seminars, and they have like events after. There's also like early events in the morning that you can go to. It's like this big thing.
Oh, that's neat.
It's pretty cool. Yeah,
Good stuff. Well, hey, Tyler, just want to say thank you so much for spending some time with us today. This has been super enlightening and enjoyable.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Cool.
This is fun.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Yep.
Take care. Well, I have to say, after talking with Tyler, there is hope for the future. I know a lot of us millennials and maybe some Gen Xers and some boomers are really worried about the younger generation. However, there are many people like Tyler that have their head on their shoulders, have a good attitude. And I'm not just talking about their overall health as far as the NA industry goes. I'm just talking about overall outlook on life. And that was one thing I really enjoyed about my conversation with Tyler. I hope you were able to get something out of it as well. You can follow Tyler online a few different ways: TikTok, Instagram, and Threads. And his handle is na.brewski. And you can also learn more about the craft beer industry, including the non-alcoholic craft beer industry, by going to beermediagroup.com. As always, thank you for taking the time to listen. If you have not shared, liked, subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And we will see you again next week.